Welcome, Tabtarians, to Tabletop Terrors. I am Tim, and this is Daily Damage, a stream from my car. And here at Tabletop Terrors, we believe that everyone can be more creative, and we use tabletop games to prove it. Let's prove it today. We're going to get creative by eviscerating what you believe about the Drow. And at the end of this video, I'm going to pose a unique Dragonborn world-building challenge, and you don't want to miss that. But before we get started, a Tabtarian toast. I, as almost always, am going to have an energy drink. So, raise your drink with me. May you mend the first break. May you kill the first snake. And may you conquer everything you undertake. Sláinte. All right. This is a live stream. I will be popping in and out of the chat down here. So feel free to comment. In addition to that, this video is also going to be on YouTube. So if you're watching it on YouTube, we also read all of the comments as well. Here's a disclaimer. I'm going to say a lot of things about the Drow that are probably going to make a lot of people upset. So get ready for that. And there's another issue that I have that I want to throw out there very early, is that something I'm realizing that bothers me is that the Drow, the Duergar, the Sverfneblin, all of these creatures, these races, these sub-races have different origins. And they all happen to be dark, evil sub-races, but they seem to have vastly different origins. That's fine. It just doesn't inspire me. And I'm in control when it comes to my campaign world. So I want to basically lay that out, that I don't like that. So let's go to the chat and let's see who the heck is here checking us out today. Harry is here. Harry Pollitt says hello. Harry is one of my world building buddies. He's a really good world builder. Dill Shoulders is here. Josh Glisson says, woohoo, 3-day weekend. Josh Glisson is here. Let's see, who else? Matthew Knapp. Jonathan Lutzer. Hi, Tim. What's up, man? Jacob Norman says, hello. Drow's it going? Waka waka. Jake, you're my bearded hero. Melvin Victorio is here. Let's see. Johan Pavola. Hey, hey. Jonathan Lutzer. Oh, gods, the punniness is too much. Scott Hustis is here. All right. So, I'm a big fan lately of a mission statement. We can talk and these streams are cool, but I want to have a target that we're trying to hit by the end, and that's important to me. So here's my mission statement, sort of off the cuff, and it's specific to this stream. I want to use this stream to talk through my ideas for the Drow, to create something that makes sense to my world, inspires me, and helps explain the other dark races in the world. So that's kind of long, but that's kind of where my head's at. I want to make something that makes sense for the Drow, carries over to the other dark races so there's some sort of connection, and also fits in with the tone of our campaign world of Dragongrin from AbsoluteTabletop.com, where evil has won. So that's what we're going to do today. First, I want to do this. Drow. What's a Drow? You're watching this. We have tons of new subscribers. A lot of them are brand new to the game. Very, very basic baseline of what a Drow is. Pointy ears. They're dark elves. Slim, athletic builds. Gorgeous obsidian skin. So very dark black or gray skin. An affinity to darkness. They have a long storied history. A lot of times they also have shock white hair or gray hair. And they like white eyes or red eyes. That's typically what they are as far as their appearance. As far as their kind of culture, think of it this way. They're raised to not trust. They only forge alliances with people who they know that they can outmatch and kill if they need to. And then if you want to think of their society as far as where they come from, as far as how they're raised and their religion, it's a matriarchal society, militaristic, heavily influenced by religion of worshiping a demon from the pit named Lolth, who's like a spider goddess. That's kind of the thought. That's the Drow. What do you think of as the Drow? That's what I think of. All of that stuff, and I'm talking this is a sacred cow in D&D. Drow are very either loved or hated, but they're very popular, and everyone typically knows who they are. Everything I just mentioned to you is cool. It's Forgotten Realms. I'm all for that stuff, but I want to slaughter it for our world. That drow, I don't want it to live in Dragongrin. I'm not okay with that living in my world. And I don't know about you, but let's come up with something totally unique, totally interesting. And I'm not guaranteeing you that we're going to get all the way there by the end of this stream. And I don't have some grandiose plan at the end. I just have some things I want to talk through with you, because I have ideas, and we're going to work with your ideas and build something awesome. All right. Let's check the chat again. Josh Glisson says, Elven Mafia. See, we already did kind of the Mafia with the orcs the other day, so I don't know. I think we're going to kind of have to... I think we might have to stray away from that. The Mapronomicon. Mine have French accents. Chris Perkins loves him some French drow. And that is kind of cool. I will not argue with that. Dave Hubble says, pretty sure it's a sacred Roth for the drow? Oh, I might be saying that wrong. Jeremy Lilly's also here. All right, so you're tuning into this. You're thinking, all right, well, get to the point. What are we going to do here? Here's what I want to do. I want to start with a place. I want to start with something inspirational. So we're going to do, obviously, racial world building, but I don't necessarily have to start with a race. I'm going to start with something I call the Desolation. The Desolation is our Shadowfell, okay? Why? Why do you call it the Desolation? Well, I want it to be different. I don't want you to come with all your preconceived notions of the Shadowfell. We're also an indie publishing company, and I want something different, something that we can use and say, no, this is ours. So the Desolation, it's this parallel plane. And think, this is where necrotic energy lives. This is where shadow magic stems. It's a counterpart to the Feywild, similar to the Shadowfell. But it's that echo of the prime material plane. Think of that as a desolate place. If you're familiar with Stranger Things, it's the Upside Down. That's exactly what this is, where when they go to the Upside Down, there are sort of these twisted versions of the way things are, these reflections or these echoes. I really want to play off of that. That's the Desolation. And so to me, what I want to do is I want to remember this. If you're in the Upside Down, if you're from the Upside Down, it's not the Upside Down to you. That's normal. It's who you are. Everyone thinks that they're the original. Everyone's the hero of their own story. No one wakes up and says, well, I'm a gray doppelganger. Oh, I can't wait to doppelgang today. Ooh, who am I going to get my doppelgang on? It doesn't work like that. So to me, the important thing is that we have to think, okay, everything in this realm acts as though they have a purpose. They are denizens of a real living culture and society. I don't want this to just be a place we visit for like evil, dark things. There has to be an ecosystem. So let's talk about how the Desolation came to be. I'm going to shock you with this one. I don't know. I don't want to know. It's because it's a dark, old, mysterious place. I think sometimes when we quantify things beyond a legend, it destroys a tone and a feel of mystery, a sense of greater depth and danger. To me, I'm not going to make that mistake with something so dark and cruel as the Shadowfell or the Desolation. So where did it come from? There are hundreds of theories, but it was so long ago that no one can prove it except the oldest, darkest things in the Desolation themselves. So I think that's important to know. Old, ancient evil. I want to make sure that much of the Desolation is this twisted reflection of the prime material plane, like we talked about. So, okay, I want you to do this thought exercise with me. Wherever you are right now, look around. Now imagine yourself in the Upside Down. Imagine yourself in the Desolation. That sort of thought process, everything's grayed out. There are these sort of, I don't know, bleak vines and just twisted things. I would say that the geometry is non-Euclidean in some ways. So you've got this weird place. That exists, but I think what's also super important is there need to be numerous other inhabitants that inhabit this area. It's not just a mirror of our realm. There have to be these other creatures specific only to the realm. I don't know how they were birthed. I don't know where and how. But in other words, they're not just mirrors. It's not just, hey, there's an elf. Oh, there's a dark elf. Hey, there's a human. Oh, there's, it doesn't work that way. I want it to be that somehow in the deep primordial, mirrors of this realm, something new happened. Something brand new formed and was created and forged. And now there's a thriving ecosystem back there. So let us talk here to the chat. Jeremy Lilly says, howdy, everyone. Josh Glisten says, Salvatore's drow are based on the Mafia. Oh, gotcha. That actually is very true. Dave Hubble says, Roth, underdark cow-type creature that has 8 legs. Underground cattle, basically in Forgotten Realms. Yeah, I had no idea what that was. Sorry. You're smarter than me, as usual. That's why I do these streams, because you guys are rock and roll. Josh Glisten, drow are scavengers as well as hunters. Base them on hyenas, who are also matriarchal. That's great. That's a solid place to start. Harry Paulus says, spider cow. Spider cow does whatever. Spider cow does whatever a spider cow does. We're close. Mike Lasham is here. Dragon Eggs Benedict. Hello, all. Ben Buckner says, hey, Tim. Instead of the Feywild, there's a continent that the Fey have taken over and terraformed into a Fey corrupted place. Normal animals have been twisted or exaggerated like Alice in Wonderland. That's cool. I super love that. In our world, it's this place called the Ord Mists. No, lie to you. I just lied to you. It's the Fey Mists. Again, it's just another word that we have for Feywild. Why do we call it something else? Because I don't want you to take your baggage with you from an awesome thing called the Feywild. You got to leave your assumptions at the door when you're coming into our campaign world. Well, not to be snowflakey, but because we're trying to create a genuine new tone, a sense of space, something that feels like a world that you've never been in without being so snowflakey that none of it makes sense. So anyway, in the Fey Mists, just think of it this way. The Fey Mists exist high, and the Desolation exists low. So the Fey Mists in our world are guarded by this huge tree called Talus, and there's this labyrinthine sort of forest area called the Root Gate. But to kind of play in, so Ben, take Talus in the Root Gate and say that it fell. It careened to earth and it crashed. So it's this dead tree that used to be this cool floating root gate that guarded the Fey Mists, and now it's not. And so you could have all that. It's taken over. It's terraformed. It's like corrupted because it's not hooked to its, Fey photosynthesis nubbin, and it falls down to the earth, and now it's this kind of, shattered wood, or whatever it is. And maybe that's something we could do. Make it so that pieces of the talus, the life tree, have fallen off and splintered down to earth, so that these crazy haunted forests have sprung up. And that makes sense now. It's not just, hey, there's a haunted forest here. Why? Well, because, on the map, we were making the map, and it looked really good to put a haunted forest here. Right here where the adventurers have to cross. That's fun to do, but I like tying it into some things that make more sense. So what if the talus, this tree, shattered, and the one that's still kind of hanging up there is struggling to stay alive because a lot of it isn't there anymore for that energy. And then the pieces down below they've become rotted and now are essentially this Fey haunted forest. So something like that. Oh man, you're going to have to help me out with your name. Andre Richter? Did I say that right? Josh Glisten, I'm at the office IRS. We are twisted. You look around, W9 forms are coming to life and grabbing people. Chad and Nick is here, as well as Dylan Allen. Mike Lasham says, just got here. But perhaps the drow rule the Shadow Realm the same way the Fey rule the Feywild. Dude, that's great. I love that. They're the dominant race. So, here's what I want to do. Remember this. Going back to the beginning of the stream, I mentioned that I realized that it bothered me that the Duergar, the Drow, the Svirfneblin, all of these cool kind of like gray-toned races with white hair, they all have different origins, as far as I know. It's like starkly different origins, but they all happen to be kind of the same. They all feed from the teat of the same trope teat. We're going to smack them right off the teat. Pow! You're out of here. Again, it's fine if you want to keep yours that way, and I'm not saying overwrite it to make something more complex, but here's something that inspired me, and I thought, here's what my solution is. All of these other sub-races have the same origins in the Desolation. They're different origins. And you can even get like folk-tale-y with it. Like, you know, the dwarves tried to dig their way out of sorrow. And just, you know, in that way, that's the Duergar being born. The, you know, the drow, they tried to prepare themselves for a war that would never come. The Sverfneblin tried to invent and, you know, create a new way to happiness, and it failed. Or, you know, all these things, very, very, again, not literal. They can be, but I'm thinking very figuratively. But the idea is, in the world of Dragongrin, what if it's not a bunch of separate dark sub-races, but what if they're all categorized as people from the Desolation, creatures from the Desolation, called the Morden? And I mean M, cool umlaut O, M, umlaut O, R-D-E-N, the Morden, right? And so common people call them dusk folk. Now, because this Morden kind of thing makes it so that you can essentially now have any creature can be from the Desolation, and you can kind of apply this to it, so that I don't have to come up with another thing. It was like, hey, okay, so your halflings, your dark halflings, what's their story? Their god did what to them and why? It's like, no, they're from the Desolation. So let's spitball some names. Let's do some, like, just some, so like, you could call them the drow, you could still call them the drow, but I'm thinking something like, call them like dark ember elves, or like, they can have sub names, like, 'cause, come on, it's cool, it's fun to name stuff, you know? So you want to have Mudbeard dwarves, or, you know, Gloomrock dwarves, or Silverwise halflings is kind of one of the ones that I want to do. Dark Delver gnomes. The thing is, it's all encompassed under this umbrella, which is, listen, they came from the Desolation. These are a people, a troubled, deeply old race living in shadow and just basically living in a twisted realm. And that's where they come from. Let's see here. Dill Shoulder says, could you use Eladrin? Have something to do with the birth of the drow? Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I think, one of the things that I'm always trying to do is make this world building triangle, okay? We'll call it the Tabterian Triangle. It's, and you could use them in any order or any variation of these words, so I might say it differently from time to time, but if the idea is, you know, some say, many posit, others believe. So it's, some say the drow came from the Eladrin. You know, others posit that they were born from the Desolation itself, from the shadow. Many believe, or no, others believe that there's actually vampiric origins. And by creating that Tabterian triangle, you're giving the players and yourself an opportunity to kind of pull from a little bit of it as needed, depending on where you're at in the world and what's going on. Because that's real life. Real life doesn't have a clear origin story. It's got historians who log as best they can through their own perception. And that perception is often a fogged mirror. And to make it worse, it's a fogged mirror trying to look back hundreds of years. So just remember that. I think sometimes in world building, we get so anchored down with this god came first, followed by these, followed by these. And that's super cool. And those like creation myths are like, they're fun to do. But on a day-to-day basis, the farmer who's tilling the soil and has some dark ember elves from the Desolation approach their farm to buy it and say, we wish to buy your land. We have need of it. I promise you that as that farmer is looking at the gray skin and the white eyes and the pulled back, you know, top knot of white hair in this drow of Dragongrin, their question is not, I wonder where they came from. Their question is, how am I going to live? What do I do? Do I just run? Do I get my family? Are they really interested in, you know, buying the farm? So we have, I think, come a long way. I think we're making some progress here on as far as the drow. Now, what are you doing? How are you going to do this in your world? Do you have one sort of like umbrella race like that? Because when you see the campaign guide we're working on, Dead Man's Guide to Dragongrin, very, very likely you're going to have all your normal like races that we come up with, and then the Morden is going to be a subclass template that you place on top of other classes. So what that does is this allows you to basically apply that to any creature so that they keep the traits of the base creature for flavor. So the elves still remain slender, they remain athletic, etc. But then they add that dark flavor, that thing from the Desolation. So what about you? What do you do in your worlds? The Mappernomicon says, my drow are 5 clans, 2 of which were completely wiped out during the age of my world. During one age of my world. 2 ventured into deep caves and preyed at deep creatures of the sea. They grew to huge numbers, and 1 managed to tunnel deep into the earth. All the remaining clans have different pantheons and slightly different body types. That's awesome. Whoa. I'm not sure what I just did there. Facebook Messenger. Josh said, maybe the Desolation is overrun with giant vines and have choked a giant tree. That's great, and that's perfect. See, that's really clever because it's that shadow world, right? So what is the life tree, the Talus life tree, in the Desolation? I think that's really clever. And it also, to me, that actually kind of ties them with their Fey, brethren who live in the sort of this floating life tree. It links them in a weird way. I think that's super cool. That's really clever, man. Carol Dunster is here. Howdy, y'all. What's going on? Paul Messier is here. Dragon Eggs Benedict. My drow believe that they are the older, greater versions of elves, whilst the elves disagree violently. That's perfect. Creating racial tension is real, and it immediately gives you a source of conflict that's built in largely to an entire population. Not everyone, but you could say at least 50% of the people are probably going to secretly feel a certain way, and then at least 20% of them are going to act outwardly or outspokenly about that. So that's great. Ben Buckner says, haha, nubbin. Yeah, I meant to say that that's what the Feywild is in my world, but I love your thought process about the Fallen Fey Tree. Oh, gotcha, dude. Yeah, I thought you were suggesting it to me, but no, these are all fantastic ideas. Rory McDonough says, huzzah, my browser tried to stop me from seeing this. Well, we have won the day, browser. I drink to our victory. There was a bug in there, I think. Something that's not an energy drink. I promise that. Oh well. Woo! Jonathan Letzer says, talking about the tree falling gave me an image of a blazing tree stump in the sky. All who see it know that means the Fey mists have fallen. That's awesome. And symbolism like that campaign end situation, that's like, you're talking about this beacon, because even on the ground, the denizens of Dragongrin, they don't have much hope, but if they look up in the sky, they can imagine what it's like. Oh, what is it like to live on Talus? The life tree. And you just look up. To look up and see a smoldering stump on fire in the sky, oh man. Like, if you had a modicum of hope, now you are in negative hope. You need to make hope saving throws, or you die. Chad Nick says, I'm going to straight up bottle feed my races. No more trope teat for you. That's it, man. Listen, sometimes you got to put them on the world building formula. And that formula is talking it out, playing games in your world. I'm getting protein for whatever I ate. Ooh, this is good. So Josh says, the Duergar and Svirfneblin are a result of drow breeding with dwarves and gnomes, a la half-orcs. Oh, dude, there you go. See, that's great. It starts giving reasons for these. Now, they don't have to be, and honestly, a lot of the players won't ever dig into this. But what this allows you to do, this is world building. So what this is going to allow you to do is start coming up with conflicts, place regions, or rather place races and societies in regions, because, that makes it easier to world build. If you have this idea, at least in your head, and you can write down some bullet points, when the players want to wander into an area or ask you a question about a war, having these seeds for future pillaging is perfect. Oh, Josh has some cool names here. He says Ash Elves, Smoldering Elves, Charred Gnomes. Ooh. Alexander Kostic is here. Hi, Tim. Just tuned in. What's up, man? Smoldering Dwarves. Kyle Swanson says, Vampire Drow Origins. Nice. Mind going already. See, exactly. And by having that triangle, that Tadtarian triangle of world building, you get to have 3 really good reasons why it could be. And every player and you, at any moment in time, just like a real person, gets to combine any of those 3 points together to make what they believe. Because here's the other thing. This is how it works. This is the real world. It doesn't matter what's true. It matters what you believe. Belief is why people take lives or give their life, not facts. If we're building worlds, facts are important to run games, but allow your player characters to develop their own beliefs. If you do this by giving them this triangle, then you're going to find that the players invest themselves in the world and find themselves squarely in the center of giving a hot crap about all of it. So that's my suggestion. That's my suggestion to you. Ben Fisher, hey, you made it. What's up, man? I think you're going to dig this one. Ooh, Dragon X Benedict. Shadestone Dwarves. Some cool names flying around here. Ben Fisher, my drow are a single subrace of elves, but originate from a different plane, rather than the Feywild, one of luck and fate and shifting shades of blacks and grays. That's awesome. And that right there gives a super cool flavor. I can already see them having, mechanics-wise, like a reroll trait would be super cool, similar like the halfling. But I love that, because if their society is based upon chance and risk and those kinds of things, that would be, I believe, seeded throughout their entire culture. Things like the lottery would be a religion, that would be a religious practice, rather. Stuff like that, where, if you take, because when I think gambling, you think Vegas or Atlantic City or Lotto Scratchies. Take all that away and think, okay, the pure, sheer form of relying on chance for something, that's huge, and start imagining what that would look like if it was taken seriously on a day-to-day basis, if that's how they live their life and things like that. So really, really good stuff going on in the stream. Brilliant stuff. Nathan Thurston says umbral gnomes. I love that. Very cool imagery. 2 simple words. Chad Nick says Clips Cursed Drow, a former elven race that was cursed by an age of endless darkness and rain caused by an eclipse that lasted for 50 years. Once the eclipse faded, the drow feel they are entitled to return to the surface. There you go, man. That's great. And that, why I like that a lot? Because 50 years is long enough to affect a generation, but it's not so long that it's sweet, sweet off in the far, far by and by. It's like, you don't want to go so far back that it's like, eons ago. I'm like, dude, I'm a 20-year-old squire. I don't even have a book I can go back and read. You know what I rely on? Storytellers in my town. I rely on bards. I don't know the history of the whole world. So I love that. Very clever. Dave Hubble says, creatures, boar of the desolation, may have facial features wrought with dark creases and anguished misery, as they have as such, they have a look of anger and pain at all times. I love that. These lines, like these sort of yeah, that's great, man. These little details, I think, make it so that it's different. It's not just, here are the stats for my elves. It's like, think about the fact that you would be so upset, so unhappy for your whole life, that your face is a constant chagrin. Wow. I'm a handsome boy. Kyle Swan says, I admit that the drow culture in my world is dominated by Loth, because as a player, I wanted to live that life. And that's fine. There is no problem with that. And I'm a fan of all that. I super am. To me, with Dragon Grin, I want to make a noticeable contribution to the world of RPGs. That's what I want to do. I want to make sure that this book is not just vanilla ice cream with chocolate chips in it. We're trying to make moose tracks, like something totally different that is a specific flavor. So I am not knocking on, dwarves, on drow. And that's what I said. A lot of people are going to be upset what I'm saying, but I'm saying for my world, I'm not trying to rehash. I'm not looking to reinvent what's already popular and people love. So that's great. And he says, I'm not convinced that she was their origins. I half believe her schemes merely usurp their original culture, because the Dark Elves are also a race in the Feywild. That's great. What a cool twist. The Dark Elves were around in the good place. That's a way to turn the trope on its ear. That's cool too. Carol Dunster, I'm just listening and finishing off my Copper Jackal for a game tomorrow. Rock and roll. Cannot wait for that game. Sundara Compress, Carol. Dave Hubble says, the Elven Kingdom in my world has a small grove of trees deep within their great hall that if one spends enough time laying at the roots can be cured of maladies, up to and including reincarnation. That's sick. A deeply guarded secret from the world and revered by their race. I'll drink to that. That's cool. Dragon Eggs Benedict. One thing I got to thinking about in my Jemmy plane, I'm monkeying around with this, is how they feel or see the normal plane. Wouldn't someone on a plane cursed with constant suffering see one without constant suffering as heaven, even though there may be a higher place wherein people lead even more blessed lives? Long answer short. To me, I think that that is a cool thing to explore. Do that. Have some people have that exact feel. On the converse of that, there are some people who, like, for me, I like going outdoors and I love camping, but I'm not an outdoorsy type. I don't do that all the time, and that's not something I never would want to climb, Everest or do any of that stuff. I'm not an extreme sports guy, whatever. But I do love the outdoors. So to some, I would say that to me, there are going to be some who like what they live in. Don't forget, for me, in my mission statement, I want to make sure that they think they're the primary ones. So have some who think it's heaven. Those are the player characters. Those are the ones who come to our world and just want to keep their head down and live a meager existence, right? But they're hated probably by most, or feared. But then there are some, and these are the ones who I think wish to slay the infidels, who believe that the other way is wrong, and it's out of balance. So yeah, something like that. Anyway, I promised that we were going to talk about some Dragonborn, and that's what we're going to do here now. Dragonborn, in our world, we have a pretty crazy Dragonborn, the take on it. So this is what it is. This is the world building challenge for now. I think we're going to get to this maybe tomorrow. Honestly, I might do a daily damage tomorrow. We might talk about Dragonborn, but I will have my daughter. My wife will be working, so not sure. But if not then, maybe next week sometime. But here's the thing. I want you to think about it. How do you use Dragonborn? Dragonborn are another one of those super polarizing races. They haven't been around for a while. Since 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons is really when they became a player race. So how do you feel about them? How do you use them? And do you allow them? I hear there are a lot of dungeon masters say, nope, won't do it. Some have turned once they let a player play one and they do a good job. They're like, oh, okay, I'll allow it. And then others are like, yeah, I don't care. We found something interesting. I think we found a good balance because our campaign world is called Dragon Grin, which means the grave of the dragons. A grin in our world is a grave. So how does that play in? If all the dragons are in graves, etc., how do you factor that in with Dragonborn? So we had this interesting idea. So hopefully it's not too convoluted. We're still working through it, but I want to know what you think. What do you do? How do you use them? What role do they play in your world? Do you allow them? So that's two things. The first thing is comment here. How do you use Drow? Do you like the idea? Do you have any suggestions for us? Do you hate the idea? All of those things. But for the Dragonborn challenge, I want to know how your Dragonborn are interesting, different, and do you allow them in your campaign world? Now here's the thing. If you want to be uncommonly good at world building, be sure to like our page on Facebook and subscribe on YouTube, because that's what we're all about. We're about that and being hyper creative. That's Tabletop Terrors. Anyway, you guys are amazing. I'm going to end this stream now. And until next time, may your dice roll high.